This is one of the computer-assisted mapping devices used by forestry students here at the university. It's with devices like this one that students learn the skills needed to create the necessary maps used in forest management activities. In order to develop a logical operating plan for the management of the woodlot, you'll need to develop a systematic way of cataloging the resources it contains. Such things as timber stands, bogs, open fields, brooks and streams, swamps, gravel banks, and any of the actual physical features contained within the boundary lines of the property. In our last program, you'll recall we located the woodlot. On this program, we're going to try to find out what's on it. This is an example of a timber stand map. It's one of many maps the forestry students learn to prepare here, and it's one you can learn to make for yourself with a few pointers and a little practice. You'll notice it uses the boundary line map as its basis, and then sections off the area within those boundaries into specific compartments with a coded notation. Each of these compartments represents a timber stand. And before we go any further, we should define what we mean by a timber stand. Simply stated, a timber stand is a group of trees of similar type, size, and characteristic. At this point, we should probably back up a little and remind you that in New England, we'll be working with two basic types of trees. Softwoods or evergreens are trees which keep their needles all year round, and the hardwood trees, those that turn bright colors in the fall and lose their leaves. Throughout New England and the Maritimes, some of our more common softwood trees are pine, spruce, balsam fir, hemlock, and cedar, and the common hardwoods, yellow and white birch, hard and soft maple, beech, and ash. We suggest that you get yourself any one of the good reference books to help you with tree identification. Now, back to timber stands. We said that a timber stand is a group of trees with similar characteristics. The reason it's important to understand this concept is because different timber stand types require different management techniques. So it's important as we develop our management plan to identify each timber stand in the woodlot as well as the other features of terrain that we mentioned earlier. If we take a close look at this model, it may be easier to understand what we mean by a timber stand. On the model, the darker green markers represent softwood trees. The lighter yellow markers, hardwood trees. You'll notice that in this area we have a cluster of softwood trees. So we would call this area of the woodlot a softwood stand. And this area over here with the lighter yellow markers, a hardwood stand. You'll also notice here that we have a section where the softwood trees, the darker green color, and the hardwood trees, the lighter yellow color, are all mixed in together. As you might expect, we call that a mixed wood stand. There's some more information we'll need about the timber stands, but we'll talk about that later. Our next problem is one of trying to figure out where our stands are located in our woodlot, and then to construct a timber stand map to reflect what we found. To help us do this, we spent a day with Linda Alverson. Linda is a forester with Diamond International Corporation. She specializes in maps and aerial photographs, and we talked with her about maps the woodlot owner should have and the process of preparing a timber stand map. Linda, how are we going to find out what's on our land?
The best way to find out what is on your land is to walk across it, of course. Mm-hmm. But walking across it, you don't get a good overall view of what you have and how your woodlot is arranged, how close it is to roads and house. And another way that can help you find out those answers is to use maps and photographs.
Where'd this map come from?
This is a USGS topographic map.
USGS, that's United States Geological Survey.
And you can obtain these from most sports shops or department stores. And
are there some other places where we can find these maps too, USGS maps?
Right, you can order them right from USGS at the National Cartographic Information Center.
How are you going to locate the woodlot on this map here?
Well, you pretty much have to go by the features that you know are around your woodlot. For example, our woodlot is located up this road, and the back boundary line borders on this stream. We have a house right here that we know is right across from the woodlot, so our woodlot sits right about in here.
That's about a mile or so after we pass that stream.
That's right, after that bridge. Okay, so let's just mark it out here. Okay.
Now, what else does this topographic map tell us?
Well, this map tells us such features as that the woodlot we have is surrounded by a bog, and that we've got wetland, and we've got contour lines here that indicate that we've got a little knoll or a small hill right on this piece of property.
Contour tells us elevation.
Right. Gives us a distance to the road up here, a side road, or to the streams.
There's a big lake over here.
Right.
Some high ground right there. It says ridge.
It really doesn't tell us too much. All we have for a house here is a little black square, and we can tell we have a little bog and some open area, and that's about it.
So we don't know anything about the forest, but we know something about the other physical features.
That's right.
Okay, how are we going to learn about the forest?
Another map we might want to try is, this is called an orthophoto quad.
That's a big word.
Right. This is a new kind of map that the U.S. Geological Survey is putting out, and what it really is a photo map. They take a series of photographs and they make a map out of them.
So this is kind of a combination of the map we just looked at along with the photograph.
Right.
Okay.
You can see the roads on here and streams and towns. You can also see the forested areas a little better. You can see logging roads.
Forested areas are dark, is that right?
Right.
And these light areas, those are fields.
Fields.
So we just want to look at this dark area.
That's right. You can see some changes in the colors in this forest area. It means we probably have different types of trees there, but it's a little hazy and you can't see a lot.
So you're kind of an expert photogrammetrist, and you can tell those things, but we're going to have to learn about some of that, aren't we?
Right.
How are we going to tell those differences?
Well, the best way is to move to something that has a little that appears larger on a photograph. This gives us just a broad picture of where our lot is. This gives us a big picture
from way up high. Now we're going to move down closer.
Let's get something a little larger.
Okay.
I have here some aerial photographs. Most people have seen these.
These are pictures of our Yankee Woodlot.
Right.
What's the difference here?
We have two different scales of photographs here. When I called to find out if we could obtain some of the Yankee Woodlot, the commercial firm had two different scales or projects of photographs, so I asked for a copy of each.
Now, can we get these someplace else, this kind of photographs?
Yep. You can obtain them from the Soil Conservation Service. That's probably one of the best places to get them. Also from the Forest Service or ASCS, that's Agricultural
Stabilization and Conservation Service altogether,
right.
Okay.
ASCS for
we can
short.
get it there too, all right. Now what's the difference between these two again?
Okay, we have two different scales. One of these is 1 inch is equal to about 1,300 feet on the ground. And we have a little larger scale where features appear larger, which is 1 inch to 1,000 feet on the ground.
So which one are we going to use here?
We'll use the 1 inch to 1,000 feet because we can see individual tree tops and houses much better.
Let's look at that.
Okay. Okay, again, let's refer back to our topographic sheet that we put our lot on. Okay, the next problem is to locate your woodlot on the photograph.
Well, papers around here. So we're going to use the USGS map to help locate ourselves on the photograph.
We're also going to want to check these boundaries on the ground. If we have monuments on the corners, you can sometimes find about where they are on the photograph. Okay.
So where's our woodlot?
So
this is the road again, must be.
We're on the same road again.
There's that big stream.
And the big stream.
Okay, there's a field.
Yep, and we have this field down here with the house across the road.
So that's where we stopped and turned in.
Right.
All right.
So we know these boundaries right about here.
We got the boundaries marked off, pretty good shape. Some light areas and some dark areas inside the boundaries now.
A lot of variety on this woodlot here.
How are we going to tell the man that we ordered the photograph from which one we want? Because there must be thousands that cover this area.
Probably the best way is to use your topographic map to indicate where your woodlot is. All these people who sell photographs usually refer back to a topographic map when they're ordering. So you can call up and say, my woodlot is on such and such a topographic map and it's so many miles west of say, this town here. Or you can just take a copy of the map and send it in with the outline.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If I just marked my boundaries on there and put it in the mail to whoever I was buying the photograph from, they ought to be able to
get that makes it much easier for them.
Now, is this photograph going to be useful? Over here we saw physical features. What are we going to see here?
Oh, we can see much more on these photographs.
More about the timber, it looks like.
More about the timber. In fact, on these you can even see old furrow lines in the field, so we're seeing quite a bit more.
This photograph's got a lot of different shades of gray on it. What's that tell us?
What we're seeing here is different types of tree stands, which is probably the most important thing a landowner is going to be looking on these photographs.
So we're going to have to tell them what a stand is. How are we going to know what a stand is?
A stand is a group of trees that have similar characteristics. They may be all the same height, or they may be all the same kind of species, like they may be all hardwood or softwood. Or...
Would it be pretty easy just to start and mark off the big differences? Will that help me figure out which stands are which?
Yeah, I think that's the best way for a landowner to go about marking out their stands, is by just go through and putting lines around the different shadings, and then go out into the field, into the ground, and look at them on.
Go ahead and do that. Let's see what happens. Looks like an obvious one right there. That's between
right.
Dark and light.
I think I'll outline this field first, and we can.
Okay,
That'll be all separated out.
You always start with the fields because they're easy, huh?
Yep.
They look very light.
It gets them out of the way. There. Yeah, we have another stand right here.
We really don't know what's in that field, but we'll know once we get out in the ground and look around.
Right.
Okay, so that one you marked out because the marks on there look a little bit bigger.
Yeah, and whatever's in here is much darker than anything around the sides.
Darker color, and it looks the little blips on there look bigger than the ones next to it.
Right. Oh, and this one up here, we got some salt and pepper colors.
Salt and pepper is different than the next to it's all pepper.
So we've got some lines around the major differences in what our forest stands are.
Now we'll need to know where north is in the photograph. Where is that?
Most photographs are taken so that the top of the photograph, where these numbers are, is north, but that's not always the case, so we want to check it. And we can check it against our topographic sheet, and we can line up similar features, like we can line up this stream here, get it going the same direction.
Okay, so now you're tying together the small scale of this map to the big scale of our photograph.
That's right.
Good. And
we also can line up this road. Let's see if we get this about exactly. Maybe the angle of this road will help us here.
This road and this road, and this road and this road, and this stream. How about that?
Right.
And this stream. Okay. So north is on the top of this photograph.
So for what we're going to be doing out in the woodlot, we don't know exactly, but we want a pretty good idea. So we've got this lined up, pretty good like that. Okay, now remember on a topographic sheet, north runs straight up and down, and there's always a little arrow on the bottom to remind you down here. It tells you which way north is. Okay. So north is about like this. And we'll put a little arrow on here.
Put a big north arrow on your photograph so we know where north is. We've got some squiggly marks on the photograph now. What are we going to do next?
Well, but the next thing we need to do is to go out right in the woodlot and try to determine what these differences are and what is inside each of these little areas.
Okay, so we want to separate out one stand from another. Is there some simple way that I can describe those stands so I can
I think we can get a little more organized too. It doesn't really matter where you go first. We want to try to take a look at each of these stands, especially the ones that look different.
So it doesn't matter where we go first, but when we make a change from one to another, then we want to be sure and locate ourselves.
Right. And there are some features of each stand we want to look at. We can talk about that more when we're out there. I think what we'll do is we'll look at each stand and give them a number, such as stand number 1, and we'll take notes on what we've seen.
Okay, what kind of notes will we take?
We'll take things like how tall the trees are, let's say
how
the
tall?
height. What we have for tree species, if it's hardwood or softwood. Okay. And we also want to know how many trees or how close they are. We'll call that density, how dense the trees are.
Really what we're going to do is we're going to do kind of a very simple little reconnaissance, or not a cruise, not a real cruise, but it's just going to help us understand what our inventory is and what kind of resources we have to work with.
Just give us an idea of what's there on the ground.
What's on it. That's the title of the program, and that's what we're going to do. Species and height and density. Linda, where will we start when we get out on the property?
I think probably the best thing we should do, Bud, is try to find an area that we can recognize easily on the photograph as well as on the ground. And it looks to me like going out into the middle of this field would be a good place to start, because we can stand in the field and we can see all these different trees or tree stands around the edges.
Okay, so Okay, so we're in a stand, and how are we going to go about taking down some information on this?
Well, usually we describe a stand using 3 basic characteristics. One is the tree species. In this case, we're just going to call it a softwood stand. The second is we look at the height of the trees. And these in here 10, 15 feet high.
Okay.
Maybe we should write this all down.
Okay, make a few notes.
Okay, we'll call this stand 1.
Okay, we mark on our photograph, stand number 1. And we'll take some notes on it while we're here.
Okay, so we have here a softwood plantation.
Now, would you add some extra information? Now, we've identified it as spruce. We might just add that little extra information that it's spruce.
For the height.
Height's 10 to 15 feet, we said.
And the third characteristic we want to look at is how dense the stand is, how close together the trees are, and how close the canopy fits together. Okay, this is a pretty dense stand right here.
A lot of trees, so we'll call this dense. So we've got the species, and we've got the height, and we've got the density, which will help us understand what this stand is all about. And when we get back to the office, or when we think about this later on, we'll have a picture in our mind. So we've got...
We also might want to note that these trees have a little bit of insect damage.
Insect damage, so add that to your notes. So softwood, trees not very tall, 10 or 15 feet, and very dense, with some insect damage. That'll summarize for us. Now we're going to walk along the edge here and see if we can pick up how far this goes and compare it to our photograph, and also look for the next stand.
Why don't we go down here, Bud?
Okay, we'll go that way. This trail makes it pretty convenient through here.
Sure does.
I know you're a bird expert. What kind of bird is that hollering in the background there?
It probably is warbling vireo, or one of the vireos.
There are several kinds of vireos we have around Maine?
3 or 4 different kinds.
Is that right? Yeah, well,
they're common to hardwood stands.
That almost tells us we're entering a new stand here, and we've changed, and we're getting into a different stand. Now let's take a look at this one and see if we can
stand here and look at the transition from the plantation into this new stand.
Now, in this stand, we got something quite a bit different. How are we going to describe this? This is stand number 2. That's easy. I can do that part of it.
Okay, we'll write that down on the photo here.
Stand number 2. I see some of those birds flying around over there.
We got very tall trees in here.
Tall
75 feet, would you say, high?
Yeah.
About 75 feet.
60 to 75, right along in there. We know they're hardwood.
Yeah, we have some hardwoods, such as some popple or aspen, and we have maple.
Right.
A little bit of birch.
Some birch.
We also have the big pine tree that we saw out in the field is right here in front of us.
That's that big one we saw in the photograph. Good landmark. Now
makes it easy for us to identify right where we are on the photograph. And I'll put a little arrow in there.
Is it pretty easy to get off into the middle of a stand and lose track of just where you are if you don't have a landmark?
Definitely, and that's why it's nice to carry a compass along so you don't get turned around in the middle of a stand of trees. Okay. We also have some other softwood in here. We might call this a mixedwood stand, don't you think? We have a little bit of hardwood and a little bit of softwood. Okay,
so we've got a new stand description. Stand number 2 is going to be mixed wood, and we'll explain what just describe so we can remember what species are here, the birch and the popple. Okay, so for the type of trees, we have mixed hardwood and softwood. And for the height, we said we had about 75 feet. Yeah, tall. Now what are we going to do about density? Density. That's the third part of our description. Now this area has been harvested, and it looks like it's been harvested since the photos are taken. Photos we have were taken in 1977, and this, by the looks of the stumps, this was harvested, what, maybe a year or 2 ago? Yeah, a year or 2 ago, and probably in the winter. We see some of the tops here, and not too much scarring on the ground, so we might even want to make that note that it's been harvested recently. Now density. Is that a tough part of it here?
I would say this is moderately dense.
Moderately dense. So we've summed up this stand as mixed wood, height 75 feet, and moderately dense. And our notes will show us that it was harvested recently. So that'll give us a pretty good picture of what this place looks like.
Okay.
Now, there's some more stands on our photograph that we want to take a look at.
Well, these stands in here look pretty much similar to where we are now. I don't really think we need to check them.
So by just getting to the edge here, the photograph tells us how big it is.
Right.
Is that must be quite a value to the photograph that we don't, like the old surveyors had to do, walk all the way through it. The photograph gives us that information.
It saves us a lot of time, especially if we have a large lot that we want to take a little quick little look at. I suggest maybe we go over and check this stand here and walk along the edge of it.
Right, that looks quite a bit different, doesn't it?
Right, much different from where we are now.
So I guess we'll have to turn around and head out this way.
Head back out this way.
Did you see any of those vireos in there when those birds were flying around?
No, they're little green birds. Pretty hard to see.
Okay, we're on the end of the first stand here. We're looking for stand number 3 that looks like hardwood on that photograph. Let's see if we can break off through here and see what we've got. I hear that bird whistling there. What kind of bird is that one, Linda?
Well, that's the song of a chickadee.
That's the chickadee, okay. Well, let's look around here, see if we can find a spot where we can stop and take a look. And now, we thought this was a hardwood stand. What have we got?
It's a good thing we came in here. It is a hardwood stand, but it has softwood regeneration. Softwood's coming up underneath the hardwood in here.
Okay.
We can't see that on the photograph.
Picture showed you the hardwoods, but it didn't show you what's underneath.
Let's put that down here.
We're going to take some notes on this stand, the same kind we took before.
So we have a hardwood stand again. And put a little note that we've got softwood.
Softwood underneath. We'd want to remember that. And the size of these hardwood, how are we going to classify that?
Well, again, this is about 75 feet.
Okay. Those big ones back there, sure. 75 feet. And how about density?
Well, this is quite a bit more dense than the last stand we were in, isn't it?
Okay, it sure looks dense,
yeah. We'll call this dense.
So stand number 3 is got chickadees in it, hardwood with softwood underneath.
I'll make sure we have it marked here on the photo. There.
And very dense. Now, I don't see any insect damage or stuff that we had before, although there is a dead tree right there, but it doesn't look very extensive, so we'll probably just overlook that. After completing our field survey, we returned to Linda's office to make the timber stand map of the property. With the aerial photograph we prepared before going to the field and the notes and observations we made there, the preparation of the timber stand map is now a simple procedure. The basic process is that of drawing a timber stand map on a convenient-sized piece of paper. Use a ruler and measure the boundary lines located on the photograph. Multiply this measurement by a constant such as 2, 5, 10, or whatever. Transfer this new dimension to the paper and proceed in this manner until you have all the boundary lines placed on the map. Using the photograph as reference, copy on the new map the various timber stands you observed on the photo and in the field. You'll also want to note a few physical features for reference: a big pine tree, a stream, any special physical feature that stood out as you made the survey, which will help you locate that particular spot again using the map. Once the map is completed, you'll have to write in a coded description for each timber stand. The description consists of 3 parts. The first consisting of the letter S, H, or M. S stands for softwood, H for hardwood, or M for mixed wood. The second part, size, a combination of diameter and height of the tree. 1 for small, 2 for medium, and 3 for large. And the third part, the density of the stand, or how closely the trees are growing together. Use A for very close, B for moderately close, and C for not very close. So an S2B description would denote a softwood stand, the S, of medium size, 2, and moderately dense, B. With these notations, it's now an easy task to complete the map descriptions of the stands you observed during your woodlot survey. The completed timber stand map should help you remember exactly what each stand is composed of when you sit down to plan your management of the woodlot or discuss it with a professional forester. The one thing we should stress to you at this point is the importance of obtaining good, sound, professional forestry advice. It's not the purpose of this series to make all of you professional foresters, but to provide basic information which will allow you to discuss your plans with these people in a more informed manner. On our next program, we'll go into the field with a forester who brings some interesting ideas to the management of the woodlot concerning a topic that provides another segment of knowledge for the woodlot owner and which plays a vital role in the successful management of the Yankee woodlot. That's it for this program. I'm Bud Blumenstock. Thank you for watching, and join us next time in the Yankee woodlot.
Yankee Woodlot was produced by the Maine Public Broadcasting Network, which is solely responsible for its content, and was made possible in part by a grant from International Paper Company.